We podcasted after you came on the Hit Fitness podcast, and
It was before.
it was before.
It was before.
Oh, that's right. It was. And then I was like, hey, Nate, we should have David on the podcast. You're correct. Yep. Man, that was forever ago.
That was forever ago. What happened to that podcast? Is it still going?
I don't even know.
No.
I lost touch with all of that. That's a story for another time. Yeah, I actually was going to, he asked me to be his co-host again because we drive together. I love podcasting, and I just didn't have the time for it living in Grand Rapids. It was going to be a monthly commute numerous times a month, and I'm just so busy working for a church, and I still do photography. Fitness is not really the realm I'm in. I was in it for almost 3 years, and it's just one of those things that it was temporary, a season. I learned a lot, but it wasn't for me.
Well, I mean, it's good to discover that, and you discovered it while you were young too. So
yes, I didn't waste so much time. Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's such a. I think like that's a field that I would love to go in.
Fitness. That's right. You've been on that kick for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been.
Do it. Open a gym.
I have a gym. I don't need to open a gym.
No, open a big gym. We'll promote it. I'll do all the photos. Come on, we can. We got this. I believe in you.
You know, like for a while, I thought it would be super cool to have a gym that was like almost like a community center, like a gym where like kids could come after school and like get a workout in and not really have to pay for a membership.
It's like Boys and Girls Club, but for fitness.
Right.
Yeah, that's dope.
If you could offer like some sort of classes, I don't know how you could finance that. You'd obviously need like sponsorships and like whatnot,
grants.
But grants.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking in Lansing. I don't know if in Lansing, but I could definitely see something like this in like Chicago, Detroit, Grand Rapids, with a little bit more spaces out there. But maybe there's enough people in Lansing that could pull together.
Well, you think about it like, I mean, you grew up in the foster care system.
Yep.
Like if you had something to where like as soon as you got out of school, you had a place to go and you could burn like some of that extra angst and the stress and the depression. Do you think that would like mitigate some of the anxiety and stress that kids experience today? I mean, because it forces you to have to put your phone down for a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, we didn't really have phones and
you
know, TikToks and all that. That was not around. It was like, you want to have some fun, go out in the backwoods and build a fort. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see I was a very active child. I was really charismatic. And so I remember even being in foster homes, and I was just a cut above the rest with like my energy. And so, yeah, I could see how that would have been beneficial to just release some of that. Or honestly, even like community theater, but like for foster kids. Cause like I was a theater girl. I did theater 8 years. And so it's funny because like everyone has their niche. Some people it is fitness, but I find a lot of people that have been through trauma really are drawn to like music and writing.
Right.
And so
it's a creative aspect, right? Like
it's the creative aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people try to like drown themselves in when they have experienced trauma or like traumatic events. They try to like just drown all their energy into one thing. And it could be like something like TikTok or like creating videos or photography or drawing or writing. Writing's a big one.
Writing's a huge, I mean, essentially it's like journaling, but to like music.
I mean, you think about some of the greatest writers of all time.
Oh yeah.
They probably
it's like after my breakup, I wrote my greatest hit. It's like I feel that.
Songwriters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, musicians are like, they write some of the best pieces after like a breakup.
Right. And then they go like viral and then they can't ever like make anything nearly as good. Like
it's rough. It's a rough field.
It's like Kanye. I listen to old Kanye, but new Kanye, I'm like, like he's really talented, but I feel like, well, also I'm like his mental health, someone help him. But no, he's a great writer, but I just feel like he's gotten so big and there's so many artists like that they get big. And I mean, they probably have people write for them, but it's just not the same.
Well, they become so prolific. Like Kanye's prolific with his words and his lyrics. Like he's just so good, unless he's in an interview. Then you're like,
yes,
like you shouldn't use those words.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I was actually just discussing this with a friend the other day. I'm like, it's something like they always talk about like old rappers or something, or old people who try to be relevant.
90s, early 2000s. Well, The kids will never know the music we had. They just won't.
They won't. Like, you think about like Eminem, like the old
he used
Eminem.
to be so much better. Yes, I so agree.
But then you listen to his new stuff, you're like, what?
Oh yeah.
What is this?
Yep.
Why?
I agree. Now I'm trying to think who else was good. Snoop, Chance the Rapper, Drake used to be. They just all used to be better. And yeah, I agree.
It's like I don't know where the music industry is going. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of it.
It's honestly, when I'm talking to musicians, and there's quite a bit in Grand Rapids, it's very much the beat that matters. So if you can get someone lost in the beat and grooving with you, and they're like, "Oh, I'm vibing," they're not necessarily listening to the lyrics. They're just listening to what that music makes them feel like. And then sometimes like they'll look at the lyrics and like, "Oh, that's really what that song is." But it's the beat. So
people don't pay attention to lyrics anymore.
No, which is so sad. I'm a lyrical person through and through. So
well, you're also a musician, so I think you appreciate all aspects of the music, right?
I do. I do.
What do you play any instruments?
Oh gosh, I like to say I know all the chords. I'm not necessarily a musician. I'm more a singer, so I can play piano and guitar to get by. Or like, say if I'm in the studio, I'm like, oh, this is how like these are the chords, and now someone else play it for me. But yeah, I use my voice as an instrument.
So can you read music?
Yes, I can read music. I prefer more the chord charts rather than like all of the notes.
Right.
I can read it. It's just when it'll take me a second to get back into it. I used to do piano lessons, so I can read it. It's just, And then there's people that do the number system, and that boggles my mind.
What's the number system?
So rather than at the top of, like, say if you're reading like for a song, the lyrics and there's the chords at the top, they'll be like 2, 3, 7, and they remember it by like, so like say on the piano, every key rather than like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's how it goes. It's really interesting. I don't know when that even started.
Is that newer? Like a newer thing?
It's been around for a minute because my brother used to do it. Oh gosh, maybe like 7, 8 years ago. But because I used to do lessons and it was taught formally, I can't transition to the number system. So
yeah, I mean, it's like learning new math.
I know.
You can't do that.
But if you're a numbers person, you got it.
What's interesting is, I was thinking about this the other day, is that they've changed the way you learn math. And in schools, they're obviously changing some of the old systems, the ways of doing things. And it's like, this doesn't even make sense. It doesn't jive with me.
Yeah, it's almost like, I was talking to a student the other day and they said, algebra, they almost give you like different options of figuring out a problem, whatever's easiest for you. And to me, I'm like, there was only one way. Like, what are you talking about? What? Which like, I kind of can respect that, just because there's kids with different learning deficiencies, and some are more like, what are the different ways of learning? It's like audio or like visual
or hands-on. Yes.
Right. So there's different ways. So I think we've adapted educationally based off of our deficiencies, which is good.
Well, I mean, and everybody learns differently. Like, I'm a more hands-on type of person. Yeah. Like, if you show me something, like if you pulled a math problem up on the screen and somebody was like explaining it, I'd be like, yeah, no. But like, if you were to like, if I was to have the problem right in front of me and somebody was to like kind of go step by step, I'd be like, oh,
I got it. Yeah.
Maybe it's a learning disability. I don't know.
We're just different brains. Or, if you're like left side of the brain or right side of the brain.
Right.
That's a whole, I don't even really hear people talking about that. I feel like when I was a kid, that was more like, oh, you're right-brained.
You're
like,
right-brained.
I'm right-brained. Like, yeah, we're always right. And then left brain, because like you have the right side of the brain that's more like creative, and then the left side's more like logical. So those are like the doctors, the engineers. Like,
can you operate in both spaces?
I think some people can. So like, say if you're going through the Myers-Briggs personality test, there are some personalities, or the Enneagram, that are like right in the middle. I almost feel like I kind of had a side of that was a little left side, but then I had a really bad head concussion. I think I told you that last podcast. I had a really bad head injury. Oh yeah. And I feel like I lost some of that like intellect almost, because I even remember the first couple years I lost some of my vernacular. Like, I couldn't remember certain words. It was awful. But yeah, I'm definitely more the right side. I'm artsy fartsy. So that's what my mom always used to say. So
wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know what side I am. I'm definitely not like super logical.
You're pretty creative.
I'm creative. You're creative. I'd say I'm creative.
Well, are you flighty?
In what
What would your
manner?
wife say?
She would say I'm ADD.
Oh, so you're probably right, brain. It's okay. It's okay.
It's all right. I embrace it all.
You embrace it.
I
all.
try to anyways.
There we go. Lean into it.
Lean into it. You have
There we
to.
go. All the way, even if you fall over the side of the bridge, just lean into it. Oh gosh.
So what's been going on since you were on? You were on over 2 years ago.
I know. Forever ago.
You were like I think we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. You were episode 34, I believe,
Wow.
which was eons ago.
Yeah.
So much has happened since then.
Yes.
A lot has
A
happened.
lot. Like a lot.
Like a lot. Like you were on the podcast, and then like I did your podcast, and then all of a sudden you're like moving to Grand Rapids. You're just gone.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So I'm gonna give you the long story short. So when we had podcast last, I was in fitness, and since then I've left the fitness industry. Yeah, definitely had some good times, but like there was still something that was like, okay, I thought this was gonna be my passion, but for a girl, the fitness industry is really difficult. You run into, unfortunately, some toxic people, but then also I think for women especially, you get the peer pressure of you have to be super sensual. Was not going to go down that route, and I think a lot of women go down like the fitness model route rather than just being a fitness trainer. And that's just a lot of pressure. And so I backed out of that, and back in the end of 2021, I started meeting with a couple counselors, a couple people, and ultimately decided I had to leave my marriage. It was, unfortunately, it took a turn, a little abusive, and if I'm being honest, yeah, left that. And I remember I'm like, okay, I just kind of want to get out of Lansing, fresh start. I'd always loved Grand Rapids. Being a photographer, I do a lot of weddings in Grand Rapids, so I was familiar with the area. It's super artsy, it's vibrant. Just the cultural dynamic is just, it's like triple what Lansing has. And I'm a foodie, and they have the best food. And so
do you drink beer?
I don't.
They have a lot of beer there too.
They do.
It's
Yep.
Beer City, right?
Yeah. I feel like they have more wine.
Really?
Because like the signs everywhere is like art and wine. Those are the two big things, art and wine. Because I think we're on the west side of the state, so like a lot of wine is on the west side of the state. There
Right.
is a lot of beers.
the
There's a lot of
vineyards.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, have you ever been to Art Prize?
No, I haven't.
It's spectacular.
Yeah, I need to go.
Spectacular.
I need to go.
Yes. But it's not even just Art Prize. They do art stuff all year round. There's like a Japanese light exhibit that's going to be put up, I think, in the next month or so in the zoo. And it's like real art. It's great. It's great.
Interesting.
But yeah, I wanted to move to Grand Rapids, and I remember my mom was like, so like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I got to sell my house. Like, I was just like on this roll, and honestly, it was like totally the grace of God that I was able to just like stay the course. Because like leaving someone that you vowed to stay with forever till death do us part is traumatic, right? And even though some things didn't add up the way I would have liked, it's still sad. It was a grieving process. And so I was really thankful for the people that surrounded me, that encouraged me. I know Sarah was one of those people that just was like, keep going. You got this. You have so much in store for you. You're talented. And yeah, my mom's like, so what are you going to do when you go to Grand Rapids? And I'm like, I want to work for a church. Like, it just like came out of my mouth. My experience had been with worship leading. And so originally I had been applying for those positions, but stumbled across a high school director position. And I'm like, I have some experience with kids. Like, I've been through the system. I feel like I've have enough life experiences to have empathy. And so applied for this position, fell in love with the associate pastor, and just really felt at home. And so yeah, it would have been, it's almost a year now that I've been working there as the high school assistant director. And then I'm over the young adults as well. And it is my dream job.
Is it an academy of some sort?
No, it's a church.
It's a church.
Yep. So it's Hillside Community Church. So it's like right on the edge of Grand Rapids. And wow, the dynamic. So like it is right by Kentwood High School, which might not mean anything to you, but to me, and you'll appreciate this, is that school represents 73 plus nations. And so you get lots of immigrants, you get tons of foster kids, you get a lot of kids that have just been through trauma and are looking for ample attention and care and just someone to give them purpose. I mean, there's some of these kids that don't want to go back home because it's unfit living circumstance. So, yeah, I just rubbed shoulders with such diversity, so many different cultural backgrounds. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
So,
and who would have thought that by leaving everything here, you would end up in a position like that?
Yeah. It was, I mean, literally, like, it's the weirdest thing because I feel like I was really a part of the Lansing community. So I know a lot of people. I love networking. I just, as you can tell, I'm very extroverted. And so I just knew a lot of Lansing people. So then to leave everything behind and go to Grand Rapids, I didn't know anyone. And the one person I knew, he's one of my best friends. He was graduating from Grand Valley in a couple weeks. So he literally like do-si-doed with me. He moved back to Lansing. I'm like, I know no one out here. And, but it was a good fresh start. In the first 2 weeks of me moving out there, my car went up in flames on the side of the road.
Oh my God.
I had a homeless person break into my car, steal my purse, some shoes, and I almost was abducted.
What?
Yes, this is all my first. I'm officially a Grand Rapians now. They're like, welcome to the city, baby. I'm like, I love this for me. Yeah, I almost
breaking you in.
It was. My boss is like, I promise you, like, I know this all happened to you in the first 2 weeks, but I promise you Grand Rapids is a great place to live. Yeah, I was almost abducted. I was out at, there's a lot of 24-hour coffee shops out there. It's great. Another reason why Grand Rapids is amazing. So I'm out there working, I'm editing photos, and I remember the coffee shop starts to clear out, and it's about like, I'm going to say 11 or 12 o'clock. And I noticed this man had come in and sat right down, like right behind me. I couldn't tell what he was doing. I just knew he was right behind me. Well, meanwhile, there's another man, and he's watching this man that's sitting right behind me. He's just staring. And so he's keeping tabs on me. I didn't even know it. And there's a girl. Sorry, this is follow the circle.
You're
here,
good. I'm
David.
following.
Okay,
I'm following.
So I'm sitting, and there's another girl sitting next to me. She gets up to leave, and as soon as she gets up, this guy that was sitting behind me jumps in her spot. Like, he literally like jumps there, and it like startled me. But I'm like, whatever. I keep editing, and then I'm noticing because now I'm right next to him. He's staring like unashamedly, and so I'm like, what do? I don't even know anyone out here. So I text some friends who are like within 30 minutes, and I'm like, this is the situation. And they're like, do you want me to come to you? But now at this point, it's probably almost 1 a.m. now. And I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll just call you like when I leave. And so I'm watching this guy, and he doesn't even order anything. Oh, this is the one thing. Every about 10, 15 minutes, he gets up and he goes outside and he looks down the street. Text comes back in.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Literally looks down the street. I'm like, this is weird. But again, I'm like, there's no way.
What?
There's no way, right? So I then get up to start packing up my things. He jumps up, starts packing up his things. And it's not like he's a homeless guy, because at first I'm like, maybe this guy's homeless. No, he's wearing like Columbia, North Face, nice, like he's got nice like name brands on him. And he's clean. And so I start packaging up my things, and he runs outside. But now he's waiting for me. He's peering in through the window, just standing there. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm not this is got to be real, right? And so I went to ask the barista, but I'm like, it's this little like 16-year-old girl. I'm not gonna ask her to walk me outside. She's gonna get kidnapped too. So I'm like, I call my friend. I'm like, I'm just gonna put you on speaker. I go to reach for the door, and I see the man jump up because he's like sitting at an outside table to come near the door. And the other man that had been watching the past like 2 hours, he's like, wait, don't go. I think this man is like I don't remember. He maybe said sex trafficker, because sex trafficking is pretty high in Grand Rapids. Oof. So I start crying, and I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, I've been watching him. He keeps running outside, looking down the road. Like, he saw everything I was seeing. And so, yeah, we ended up calling the police. He walked me to my car. The police, but literally in this.
Did the guy stay till the police showed up?
No, he left. But I ended up finding out in the same week that I know a couple other girls that really had an attempted abduction, like a man grabbing them, and it was the same exact description. So I'm like, wow. Oh my word. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh my god.
And it was in the middle of the day for some of my friends, like 11. Crazy. Wow. And they went like the other side of the car. Man tried to jump. I'm like, wow. So I don't go out late by myself anymore. I go with my husband.
That is so crazy.
Yes.
That is so scary.
Grand Rapids, baby. You just get used to it.
Oh, the city where you might be abducted.
It's cool though. It's cool. I mean, Honestly, I have more fear, I feel like, for homeless people. The homeless population feels like LA all over again.
Really?
It's very high. I happen to be on the same street as one of the homeless shelters, and so at certain points of the day, you will drive by and there might be like 70 homeless people just hanging out, or there's sides of the highway where it's just full of tarps.
Oh my gosh.
So that's kind of sad.
Are they doing anything about it? Is there any programs in place for them?
There are. I think so many have congregated there, though. They can only supply so much help to so many homeless people. I know that's something I've discussed with my church, is like, what are some programs we could start? Because like, in a way, just like giving them a handout can be entitling, rather than like, what's the system we can to get them off the streets, right?
Well, some of them don't want to be.
That is true, too.
That's a problem too.
Yes.
But another problem too is like these homeless shelters, like if there are some, they kick them out during the day.
They
so
do.
then they go and
They just wander.
They wander. They do.
They break into cars.
They break into cars. They're committing crimes all day long.
Yeah.
Then they go and stay in the homeless shelter at night.
Yeah. It's sad.
It is sad.
So.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think a lot of cities, especially the big ones like Grand Rapids, Detroit, LA, like a lot of the homeless populations skyrocketed during those times.
Since COVID too. There was a few people. I remember I was talking to a man last fall, got him a pizza, talked and prayed with him, and he kind of told me his story, and it was so sad because you could tell, like, beyond like the filth and his hair all grown out, that he looked like a presentable guy that just life hit him hard. And he starts telling me like, yeah, I got evicted since COVID, I lost my job, and then his girlfriend got there was just like a whole list of things. And so you could see he had applied that day for like 10 jobs, but of course only very select places are going to hire someone that doesn't have an ID. Well, maybe he did have an ID, but looking like that, right? So I think he was getting a job at a factory. So like there are some places like the factory, they're like, we don't really care what you look like as long as you're working, which is great. And they give you a shower. General
Motors is one of them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've hired some homeless people. I'm like wondering like, where are we hiring these people from? Like just some of the things you see, like it's like, because I remember like when I hired into GM, like you had to be referenced in order to get in.
Wow.
That's how I got in.
Yeah.
And then shortly after I hired in, they got rid of that and they just started hiring off the street.
Wow.
But then like now it's like you see some of the weirdest.
You do,
dude. There was a girl who just got hired as a temp like 2 weeks ago. Oh no. Her first day, she was training with this guy. Grabbed his junk.
Oh my goodness!
Grabbed his junk. They moved her to a different area, and she like threw a fit, and they ended up just firing her like 2 days ago. But come to find out, she's like a stripper in Jackson.
She's got that confidence.
She's confident, yeah. I mean, more power to her, I guess. But
wow,
it's like, where are these people coming from? So
wow,
yeah. I mean, like people need jobs, but
there is a line. There is a line. I feel like, unfortunately, with what like social media and society shows, like in like say movies or music, proper social etiquette is often missing, and there's a part of that falls back on the parents, right?
Well, I think a lot of it too is the media, like what they show on the news and what they're promoting. It's like it's horrendous. Like I watched a news clip the other day of a swimmer who was giving a speech about how like she was against, like trans women being in women's sports. And it was at some college in San Francisco. And they attacked her. Like they physically attacked her.
I saw that.
And
yes.
It's like whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter.
She was hit by like two men.
Yeah, two men.
What? Yeah, I saw that.
And it's like you're fighting for women's rights, but you're hitting a woman. I don't know. It's like that's the stuff that's being promoted in the media, and it's like it's taken, like young people are absorbing that, and then they're also emulating it.
I feel bad for men, because I think what has happened is we're gonna go down this street, David.
Let's go down the street. I love going down streets.
So
dark ones.
And then we'll take a couple dark alley. Hopefully we won't get mugged though or abducted.
I hope not.
So I feel bad for men because unfortunately I think a lot of like women empowerment, there is a level where I'm like, okay, cool, I can support that. But when it crosses a line of you know that Annie, get your gun, anything you can do, I can do better. You know,
yes.
right? It's very much that mentality among women of like, oh, you can do it, I'm gonna do it better. And it's we've blended. There's not even like a differentiation between men and women anymore, where there's like, how do I explain this? So like, I feel like I need to give an example. Where women are almost like, well, okay, rise up, be a leader, but don't be emotional. You can't cry, but get help for yourself. Like, it's like we're shooting so many things at men. Men are just overwhelmed by the expectation. Like, they don't even know how to be a man anymore, because then when they do try to be a man, well, then that's offensive to me because I can take care of myself. But then they just gotta back off. Well, then be a leader. You know, it's like, we're talking from both sides of our mouths. And so like, I feel so bad for men because it's like, I do wrong. If I play like the bad guy, well, I'm the bad guy. If I play the good leader, I'm being patriarchal or a toxic masculine. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I hurt for men, and I feel like a lot of men who are just choosing to be like, they're pussyfooting because like, that's like the safe ground for them.
I guess like,
if that makes sense. I was all over with that.
No, I think it makes sense. I guess I feel bad for women because I feel like men are imposing on women, and
elaborate on that.
I almost feel like women's rights are being like kind of stepped on by men who want to, by trans men or people who want to. Like, we fought so hard in this country for women's rights. Or you guys, the women, fought hard for women's rights, right? In order to vote, in order to have equal rights and whatnot,
and get a job.
And get a job. I almost feel like all of that is once again being taken over by men. What do you feel about that?
Oh man, I feel like in these conversations I always play devil's advocate because I'm a very middle grounded person.
Yeah. I respect that.
I want to answer cautiously here. So,
but we should also state that it's important to have these kind of discussions because
it is. Absolutely.
Because I mean, if you don't have these discussions and you just don't talk about it, then you don't solve anything.
Correct. I think what I have seen, and you see it a lot on like TikTok, is because of how much you see in media, it's all about the women. You have women who walk around, they're like, I'm a 10, I'm worth the world. And I'm like, why? Because you pay your rent? Like,
who does that?
Oh, are you not on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok.
Okay. So there's like people that go up to women. They're like, oh, rate yourself. I'm a 10. They're like, why? Because I'm a queen. There's not actual tangible value. They just automatically like bow down to me because I'm a woman. And then they're like, okay, what would you rate this man? Oh, he's like a 4. I'm like, oh, well,
like
little did you know.
They're
going based off looks initially, and then he'll be like, well, little did you know this guy is like a millionaire. Oh, all of a sudden they want to be all up on him. But it's this. Okay, so here's for example, I work with a lot of young adults, right? So naturally I get stories all the time of like, oh, I went on a date with this person from Tinder, right? And you have girls that consistently will expect a 5-star first date, right? You better be picking me up I'm judging your car. I'm judging where you're taking me. I'm judging which to a degree, first impressions are a thing, right?
Yeah.
But to a degree where like, you better treat me like a queen, but you're bringing no value to the table. That's where I struggle. And I see a lot of like women empowerment. I'm just amazing because I'm amazing with no tangible evidence to bring to the table. Right. And I'm here to say like, you are amazing. You are great. And I think you're worthy of getting the same rights, but not to like, you don't get rights by trampling other people's rights or other people.
Well, I think that like if you go into a date, for instance, with that kind of expectation, aren't you kind of looking for the wrong things? You're looking for physical things. You're looking for material things. You're not necessarily looking at like, what is this person's personality? Like, are they trying to make sure I have a good time on this date? Right. So what if they pulled up in a 1990 Toyota Camry that barely runs? Do they take me to dinner? Do they pay for the dinner? Do they open my door? Like,
they listen to me.
Do they listen to me?
Yeah.
Do they make me laugh? Like, are they making sure that I have a good time on this date? Yeah. So like, if you're looking at a date, for instance, with that perspective, like, oh man, he picked me up in a crappy car,
See, it's not even just physical, unless they're like super wealthy. I think it comes down to they want to be treated like they're the Queen of England. And I'm like, so like another TikToker I saw, that's why I had to get off TikTok, because I was getting too angry. And also the things that are on TikTok, I'm like, how do y'all have time to do this?
I know, but some people are so creative. I'm like,
oh
this
yeah,
is awesome.
I respect those. Like when they really they're not just following trends, where they really put time into it. One of the TikTokers on there, oh man, I lost my train of thought. No, women,
TikTok that you had to get off because of.
I had to get off.
Get off of TikTok because of that.
Oh man, I forgot. There's I remember now. The guy goes, "You're interviewing couples. That's either the thing. You're interviewing women or interviewing couples." And he says to the girl, "Hey, is your boyfriend loyal?" "Oh yeah." Ask the guy, "Is your girlfriend loyal?" He goes, "Yeah, I think so." And then he asks the guy, before he jumps back to the girl, "Would you ever cheat on her?" He goes, "Absolutely not." Goes to the girl. She goes, "Oh yeah, I would, but I know he's always going to be here." Ooh. And that's what I'm saying. I'm seeing a lot of women, unfortunately, and I might step on some toes saying this, I see a lot of big women celebrities that are like, "I'm a baddie, and I don't care what you're going to say to me or do to me or who I trample. I'm a baddie," and that's just it. And so you see this trickle down through these girls who are absorbing all that media, and it's like, I know he's going to be there because I'm amazing. And I'm like, you're basically bragging that you could cheat and he'll still be there because you think you're so valuable. Honestly, honey, you're not. Like, you just got a job and you can pay your rent. Like, yes, you're valuable. You're made in the image of God. Yes, in that sense. But as far as like what you're bringing to the table, you're not bringing anything. Sure, you got a BBL. Good for you. That doesn't make you What
is a BBL?
A Brazilian butt lift.
What?
Yeah. Yes. No, that's okay. That's the thing too. I was just talking about this with my husband. Is that you see girls defining their beauty based off of unrealistic standards. So like they're getting their lips bigger, they're getting a butt lift, they're getting a boot, like they're getting all these things done that now I'm like, either they're not recognizable or like you have these kids who are like 16 who look like they're 30. I'm like, guys, I looked ugly at 16. What is happening? It's just, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
We are living in strange times.
We are.
I mean, how much of that is because of the Kardashians?
Oh, goodness.
Like the butt lifts and the lip injections and whatnot.
Everyone wants to look like, the hourglass. Yeah, you're right. That's a Kardashian look. Yeah. I was explaining that to my mom. She's like, "What's the Kardashian look?" I'm like, I was literally pulling up Google images. I'm like, "Mom, this is," because it's funny. Every 10 to 15 years, beauty standards change, right? So you go back to my parents' years and they're whatever comes after boomers. I don't know what the generation is called, but they're in their 50s.
Gen X, right?
Is it Gen X?
Let's look that up.
Okay, look it up.
I'll look it up.
That generation has drastically different beauty standards. So like they are all about like being skinny as a pencil. And I'm like, that's so bizarre to me. Cause I'm like, remember, you go back and like a lot of those women are like, oh, I feel so fat. And they'll like be so skinny and like almost anorexic. And that's what's beautiful. And like now my girls want like that hourglass figure.
Yeah.
Okay. What is it? Did you look it up?
So there are differences in Gen X population numbers depending. Okay. I don't know what this is. Hold on.
Are they actually boomers? They can't be boomers. My parents aren't that old.
Okay. So the baby boomer generation was 1946. Here, I'm just going to put it up on the screen. Oh, it's not. Hold on.
Classroom session at David's house.
That's right. Okay.
Wait, so is there a difference between boomer and baby boomer? Maybe I've been saying it wrong. Maybe it's just baby boomer.
No, it's the baby boomer.
Okay.
People call them the
boomers.
The boomers.
Okay,
it's almost like an insult.
Okay.
For some reason it's not coming up on the screen. All right, so I'll just read it. So the baby boomer generation was born in 1946 and lasted through 1964. And
yep, so that's not my parents. So what's after that?
So Generation X.
Okay, so
Gen X. So 1965 to 1979.
So what comes after that? Is that millennials after that?
Millennials.
Yeah, so I barely make the millennial mark.
When were you born?
97.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're like 26.
I'm like, so some
26?
I will be 26.
Oh, I was right.
So there are some
I'm good at math.
like doctors that be like, "Oh, you're a millennial." And then other studies are like, "Oh, you're a Y gen," I think that's what it is. I definitely identify as a millennial.
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
It's Gen Z. See, I don't. Yeah, same. I'm a millennial.
Gen Z, and then Gen Alpha is 2013 to 2025.
Yeah, that's crazy. I went on a young adult retreat last weekend because like I'm directing it, and I'm like, who in the room is old or born past 2000? It's like 70% of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we're doing like old Disney stuff. Like there was people in there that said, I never saw Little Mermaid. I never saw Aladdin. I'm like, you were robbed of your childhood. Like what? We're going through like the strap bracelets and just like everything from like the early 2000s, 90s. Not a clue for some of them. I'm like, you're breaking my heart right now. Breaking it. That's okay though.
Oh,
and then they're arguing about music, like what we were talking about earlier. They're like, "Oh no, this person's so good." I'm like, or they'll be like, "This is country." I'm like, "That's not country. That's like popco. That's not real
like
country."
Florida Georgia Line or something.
No, even newer. They're like the Sam Smith. You know how, or not Sam Smith. What's his name? It's Sam Hunt.
Sam Hunt.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm like, they were doing
pop.
something new. I'm like. Yeah, or he does kind of like that spoken word country. I'm like, that's not real. You gotta go back to like Blake Shelton, Tim McGraw. Like, come on. And they're, oh my gosh,
but
it was so bad.
The generation before us would be like, that's not country.
It's not though. It's pop country. It's
pop
not country.
Right.
It's a different genre. Or Dan and Shay, Flitz and I do like Dan and Shay, but I'm like, I don't know if they're fully country though.
Who do you think was the first like pop country artist?
Oh,
was it like Taylor Swift?
I feel like when she transitioned into pop, she just transitioned. I don't think she ever did something that was I remember Sam Hunt.
Like Miley Cyrus.
Oh, you know what? Like boom clap. Yeah, you might be right. She might be one of the OGs.
I think she was one of the first.
Yeah.
Let's look that up. Who was?
We're getting real deep today. Yeah, Miley Cyrus. Who else?
Patsy Cline was one of the earliest influential artists of the genre. That's not it.
Give me something different.
No. Country pop. Yeah, nothing's really popping up.
Interesting.
About it.
I can think of big people that were influential, and then I saw a lot of other people follow the same trend. I mean, Florida Georgia Line. Yeah.
I noticed a huge change in country music like around 2013-ish.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, 2013, 2015 was that total switch.
Yeah. Luke Bryan was like another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many people hate on Luke Bryan. They're like, he's not country. He wears tight pants and sings about working on a farm. And he's like, pop. That's not country.
Oh, my gosh.
It's like that dude figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, it is a cool genre. I mean, you're reaching two very different demographics and smashing them together.
Yeah.
You might have a few stragglers that don't like it, but I think it's a pretty ingenious concept to smash both together and still write. But then they still write regular country songs too and put it all in the same album.
Right.
I'm like, that's ingenious.
It is genius. I used to like Daughtry a lot, and my brother used to say that they were like pop country back in the day. Like back in the day, he's like, that's like pop country.
See,
it's not rock. That's not rock.
I don't even know mainstream country anymore. I used to really be a country fan. Now it's like I feel like I'm only listening to country like when it's summer, when the windows are down. I'm like, country roads. Like I'm really into it. Other than that though, it's not really my genre I go to anymore. And it could just be I'm in a different life season. I don't live in the country anymore like I used to. So I'm like, you can't like blare country at a Grand Rapids when there's like homeless people. I'm like, no. I'm listening like to Michael Jackson, like The Man in the Mirror. Like I gotta change this. But
that's such a good song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good song.
There is this. Now you got me thinking. There is this. Do you know Corey Kinshin?
No, I don't.
Okay, little throw out here. So he is a big YouTuber. He's like 15 million subscribers. He does retro horror games. Now, I am not a video game girl, and I do not like horror. But you combine games that look like they're made in like the 70s or 80s, and it's literally like
it's comedy.
So yeah, it's like cringy horror jump scares. And he's like, of course he's there the whole time, but he's got a great personality, so he just keeps it going. It's hilarious. And he played this game that was a retro Michael Jackson, and so it's like Michael Jackson, but he has like jagged teeth and he comes out every time he comes here. You hear just I can't. So like, and it picks up on your noise on your mic. So he's like not saying a word, right? And then you like gets closer, and all of a sudden you, and like it goes out. I'm like, what is this?
Oh my gosh.
Great kitchen, everyone.
That's hilarious. It's the internet is so amazing because you can literally find anything.
Anything.
Like who would have thought about that like 10 years ago to have a YouTube channel where you're just like covering old horror things with like Michael Jackson thrown in the background.
Remember when Yahoo was revolutionary? Like,
oh my gosh.
you got mail.
Dial up.
I hated that noise. I hated it. It was in my parents' basement. Oh my goodness.
That's one thing that's great about TikTok is they cover some of the generational gaps where like young kids don't know about like the dial up noise or they don't know about some of the different things that were like happened in the 90s. Like,
oh my word. That was so at this young adult retreat, we were going through generational differences. And there were some things. So I used to have a Hannah Montana MP3 player. And there was like two girls that are like, what's an MP3 player? I'm like, do you know what a CD player is? How about a cassette? Like, what? I was blown away.
I mean, if they don't know what an MP3 player, I doubt they know what a cassette is.
They barely remember what an iPod was. I'm like, you are breaking my heart. What?
If you had an iPod back in the day, you were rich.
Exactly. See, I went from an MP3 player and I begged for an iPod.
Yeah,
and my parents got me an iPod Shuffle.
Oh my gosh, that was the worst. That was
because you couldn't see anything. This is my MP3 player. It had a little screen.
Yeah.
But I still was like, I got my iPod Shuffle. It's still an Apple. I'm so cool. Yeah, it was funny. I got that MP3 player originally from a girl in middle school. She like sold it to me and she's like, don't tell anyone because my parents got it for me for Christmas.
Oh my
gosh. I also got like an iPod from like her grandpa or something. And so she like sold it. I was like, this is like middle school, like selling in the back parking lot. Like the Hannah Montana MP3 player. Oh man.
Oh, that's hilarious. How did you get your music back then? Did you like use LimeWire or LiveWire? FrostWire?
What was it called? Yeah, so that rings a bell. And there was also Windows, or is it Windows Media? It's through the Windows computer.
Okay.
Now it doesn't even exist. I don't think.
Of course not.
And then eventually transitioned to iTunes because you could like convert something from YouTube, put it through iTunes. I don't even know if you can do that anymore.
Probably not.
A lot of converting from YouTube's because like, yeah, I wouldn't want to pay for it.
So was it legal to do it that way?
Oh, probably not.
No.
Probably not.
So like the way I would do is I would download. So we had like I think it was like LimeWire. I think it was called LimeWire and FrostWire. Those were the two. Okay. And you would have to go find the song. Yep. And then listen to it to make sure there was no. It was
no ads or anything.
No ads. Nobody talking. Like you wanted just that.
Yes.
And then you'd have to download it, and it took forever. Then you'd have to plug in your MP3 player and transfer it over.
Oh yeah, burning. Yeah. I remember. I feel like this is YouTube Converter. That might be what it's called. Where I would download the music videos, and I just remember like watching on the computer like over and over again. I'm like, I'm so cool. I got not the music, but I have the video too. Oh gosh, yeah. There was just. Oh.
Back when you had to put so much effort into what you listened to. Isn't that crazy to think about like where we've come? Like you can literally on your phone, you have an iPhone, anything. You can look up any song you want right now.
Well, that's also, I think, what's kind of like cheapened the music industry is you can find it anywhere. Anyone can make music, and it's now not that costly to do it.
Right.
If you have the skills. And so it's like, now you have to work extra hard to be noticed because anyone can do it. Anyone's a singer. Anyone's a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's an inflated industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's so difficult. I mean, you're a musician, you know. Do you put your stuff on like YouTube? Like do you put it on like Spotify, Apple?
Yeah, so I am on Spotify and Apple. You go to Pandora. You can find me there. Shamber, Raine, little, what is that called? A little plug. Yeah, so I used to do covers all the time. I actually was reviewing those recently. I'm like, I used to be so good about this. It was like every week. I think for a while I did like a cover every Wednesday or something.
Wow.
But I think for a while I kind of lived in this fantasy of like, I'm going to make it big. I'm going to go off and like be celebrity. I was really fanciful for a lot of my teen years. And so that's probably why I started doing all the covers. Now it's like I like music. I prefer to do it. So like I help lead something called a worship circle back in Grand Rapids. And it's literally everyone that's in a circle and we're just worshiping. It's very communal. And that's more my thing.
Post videos.
Yeah, it's fun. You have to come.
You'll go live sometimes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, we'll bring in different musicians and people every week. A lot of them come to Hillside, but some people are from like different surrounding churches and just some in the community. And yeah, it's really fun. But I think where I lost kind of the desire to really take it seriously was I actually, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I got accepted into, is American Idol. Yeah, it's American Idol. I always say, is America's Got Talent? It's American Idol. And at first I thought it was a scam. I got emailed. Well, first I got a message to my Instagram because I used to have a music page at the time. And I showed my mom. I'm like, Mom, this is a scam. Then I get an email because my email's attached to my Instagram. And it's like, hey, his name is Luke. Can't remember his last name. He was the producer. I don't even know if he's still the producer because this was like 5 years ago. Hey, I notice you. I'm a Christian and I see like you have a really cool voice. I'd like to get you on here, but I'm going to skip you around. And so can you come to Illinois, come to like round 2? And I'm like, this is legit. So like I literally hired a musician from New York because I'm like, I'm not really a musician, but I want it to be nice. So I flew this guy in. He was a phenomenal guitarist and I practiced the 3 songs. And I remember I was there, I want to say like 3-4 hours, and it is so cutthroat. Literally you get in there and these big security guards are like ID, like I'm intimidated, right? You can't just come walking up there, like you got to have your slot, you better bring your ID, like this is serious. And I'm waiting in line and all the different creatives, you got people that are like looking like Beyonce costume, like they're trying everything, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember I was sitting next to this girl. She's like, oh, is this your first time? This is my 10th time. I'm like, bro, clearly you're not good. If this is your 10th time and you can't make it. She's like, how did you get in here? I was like, oh, I don't know. This Luke guy reached out to me. And then she's like, Luke? And then she's like, guys, she like gets like more people down our road because we're all waiting in line. Dude, Luke reached out to this girl. They're all like, how did one of the producers reach out? And to me, I knew nothing. I grew up not watching TV, so I knew nothing about American Idol.
Wow.
And they're like, how? And so you did first round. I was like, no, this is my first. They're like, you got to skip around? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And so then literally what was happening, it was so tragic. As you get closer to the door, like your anxiety builds up because you literally see people walk in and then like sometimes 30 seconds later, they're coming out crying because if you start and right off the bat, they don't like you, they start clapping. They just start clapping, thank you, and then you leave. So I'm getting more and more nervous as we get closer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is it. One thing, I had a 102 fever. I was so sick.
Oh my gosh.
My throat was like raspy, like pink. Like literally, I was like, I could rock it, but I was sick. But I'm like, you know what? This is fun. This is a once in a lifetime thing. So the girl goes to get up and she's like, well, wish me luck. She comes back out 30 seconds later and she's like mad. She's like, well, I hope you do better than me. So I'm like, I'm probably not going to I'm sick. I got to go through the whole song. And I was surprised. I'm like, bro. So I get to the end. And the guy, he said, hey, I'm Luke. I'm the one that asked you to come out here. And I was like, yes, you are. And he's like, I can tell you're sick. And the reason why I didn't tell him I was sick was because literally right when I had gotten there, right before I get up to the beefy security, this girl ran out. And she's like, Mom, because you can't take your parents inside. Only people that are there for a slot call can go in. She runs out as I'm walking in saying, like, I told him I was sick. So that way it makes it look like my voice is better than this.
Right.
So I'm like, they probably get that all the time. So I didn't say it, but you could tell. And so I remember he was like, you're sick. But he was like, you have a lot of talent. We're not going to pass you through just because like we couldn't tell the full quality of your voice because you're sick. But he was like, I really want you to audition. Like, I think the next one was like New Jersey. I was like, honestly, like, I really appreciate it. I ended up emailing him. We went back and forth and I was like, I really appreciate this opportunity. Like, can you give me some like pointers? But I'm like, I just don't want to get, cause like literally I you have to sign a contract that if you get passed through so many rounds, they pretty much own you. I want to say it's like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
So I couldn't release any of my own music. I have to you kind of controlled. And I'm like, yeah, that's the route to go for some people. But for me, I'm like, I'm just kind of chilling right now. Like, not for me.
Yeah, I mean the TV realm is so
cutthroat.
It's so cutthroat.
Yeah.
I reached out to. Do you know who Sadie Bass is? She's a local country singer. She's from.
Oh yes.
She's from Bath.
Yeah.
And she made it on I think American Idol or America's Got Talent. One of those. I can't remember.
So
the
cool.
one that Blake Shelton's on. Is that America's Got Talent?
I don't even know because I don't watch TV.
I think it's America's Got Talent.
Okay.
And yeah, she made it on that show. And when I reached out to her, she's like, yeah, I can't do any interviews. I also reached out to
Crazy.
what's his face? He's from DeWitt. He was on Netflix. He had a special on Netflix recently. What's it called?
For what? For music?
No. It's called the Pez Outlaw. That's what it's called. It's actually a really good documentary. You should watch it.
Wait, what is it about?
So you know the Pez dispensers?
No.
You know, like Pez, the candy, like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this guy, he found like some sort of niche where he would go overseas, buy these Pez dispensers that were only distributed overseas at the time, and he'd bring them back to America and then sell them here.
Oh.
Became a millionaire. Like
no way.
A millionaire doing this. And the company Pez, so there was two different industries. There was the one in overseas, and then there was the one over here in America.
So were theirs cooler or something?
They were just different, and they had better ones. I don't know. And
gosh.
the one in America refused to sell those ones. Well, they ended up they tried shutting this guy down, and so he became like the Pez outlaw.
Wow.
And so he was still going back and forth to their factory over there and sneaking in, and like it was like this whole underground operation.
Wow.
He lives in DeWitt.
Stop it.
He has
so you interviewed him, or you couldn't?
No. I tried. I sent him a message, and he like bounced me off to like a friend who like is handling all his media stuff, and he's like, yeah, he can't do anything because he signed a contract.
I mean, with Netflix, yeah, I'm sure.
Whatever. Like TV sucks. I had a friend too, who was in the UFC, and they had to get a release so he could do the podcast too. And he's from Lansing, like the Lansing area.
Wait, who is it?
Michael Gilmore.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say it was Daquan. He goes by the Tarantula.
Daquan Townsend.
Yeah, he was on our podcast too.
Really?
I don't think he's in the UFC anymore. He made it through 4 rounds, but I think he lost all 4 of them.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It's hard.
It is hard.
UFC, because like the minor leagues leading up, it's like, oh, I'm kicking butt, and then you get in the UFC. Yeah. Oh, it's difficult.
It's hard.
Yeah, you gotta really train.
It's a cutthroat industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you almost have to make money in order to be great.
Yeah, otherwise you make zero money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to do that. You have to do just that.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy. That's a weird thing to want to do too.
Yeah, fight someone.
Yeah.
Beat up. I love that.
For a living.
Oh. Yeah, come home like, hey babe, I broke my nose again today. So sorry. Oh my word. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say my landlord is actually trying to get into the UFC. So he was out in Vegas last week for like a week just training.
Wow.
And like he did like wrestling. Like he's pretty good. But I'm like, dude, your face is gotta get mutilated, dude. Just oh my gosh. Yeah.
I had an opportunity last September to train with some of the world's top jiu-jitsu trainers.
Wow.
And I have a video of me sparring one of them.
Oh, no.
He's a short Brazilian guy.
Yeah.
Like super short.
Yeah.
And him and his brother, they both own the gym in Chicago. And I was training with him, and he threw me around like a rag doll.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's flipping around me, and like, yeah, it was crazy. But it was a cool experience. He trains cool. He trains like all the UFC fighters.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so cool. It was such a cool experience.
How did you get that experience?
So I went to this event. It's called Roger Up, and I interviewed. So step back. I interviewed this guy named Kevin Ross.
Okay.
Who's a Muay Thai champion. He was like number 6 episode ever.
Wow.
And he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. Like he's famous.
That's cool.
And he agreed to do my podcast.
Get out.
And so the first time I interviewed him, it was terrible. Like a terrible episode. Like it was virtually.
No.
He was training for his retirement fight. And so you could almost sense like the energy, like he was aggressive, like not aggressive, but you could tell he's just like tense.
Yeah.
And which rightfully so, he's training for a fight.
Yeah.
And he's a world time like Muay Thai champion.
Yeah.
Like no, like it was. I was so nervous. Plus, I was learning how to podcast.
Yeah, you're 6 episodes in.
Yeah, and he was just coming off of Joe Rogan's podcast. So,
how did you get him? That is crazy.
I just reached out.
You started messaging everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I do when I want to like have somebody on the podcast. I'm like, hey, I like what you're doing. You want to do the podcast? And they're like, they either say yes, no, or they don't respond, and I keep moving forward.
Okay.
But
yeah,
that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did the podcast.
Wow.
It lasted like 30 minutes, and then last year he reached back out and was like, hey, I'll do the podcast again. And so
he just reached out willy-nilly, just like
he like commented on one of my videos.
That's crazy. So he's following you.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. And
that's cool.
And so what was cool about this is like, so we scheduled the podcast, we did it. It was good. It was a good podcast. It lasted like an hour, or over an hour, or
Yeah.
whatever. And he told me about this event he was going to be speaking at in Chicago. And so I'm like, tell me about this event. Like, who's hosting this event? And he told me about this guy who's hosting it. And I'm like, well, send me his contact information. I'll interview him too.
Right.
To help him promote the event. So I interviewed him.
Oh my
he gave
word.
me a discount to go to this event called Roger Up. It's like this weekend of like just like learning like how to be more disciplined, and like they had Navy SEALs speaking. Like you
so cool.
You got to train with Navy SEALs in the morning.
So cool.
Which was so cool.
But scary at the same time.
It wasn't though. Like
really?
Yeah, my wife went too, and she was like nervous. She's like, I don't like these kind of things.
Wow. But were they super like nice and tender?
They were nice.
Yeah.
They were very nice. And so yeah, it was a real like friendly environment. You wouldn't think it would be.
Crazy.
But it was.
You feel really safe now that I think about it.
So, and then like at the hotel, the event was at the hotel, and then right across the street is a mall, and they had a UFC gym in the mall.
Oh my gosh.
And so the Brazilian guys would train us in the evening.
Yeah.
So we'd wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, train with the Navy SEALs, sit through classes all day long, and then at like, I think it was like 6 or 7 at night, we'd go train at the UFC gym.
That is so much fun.
And we got we got to learn jiu-jitsu with some of the top world class trainers.
What an opportunity.
Such an opportunity.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I got to meet Kevin Ross. He was there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I have a picture of with him. Like, I'm like so happy.
Look at you rubbing shoulders with big people. That's cool.
I know, and then like, so I ended up running into him when he was leaving, and we were going to lunch in the elevator. And at the hotel.
Oh my word.
And so we're talking in the elevator, and then we're getting ready to like part ways, and he gives me a great big hug.
What?
And my wife's like, how awesome is that? I'm like,
that's so cool.
That's so cool. So cool. His fiance is also Gina Carano. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
She's like an actress.
Okay.
She's also a Muay Thai fighter too, but yeah. So crazy. So now him and I are friends. I have his number. I can text him.
Stop it.
Yeah, so cool.
See, God's got cool plans for you. I'm excited to see. You're doing cool stuff.
What was really cool, though, about like all these experiences, I shared all these experiences that I've had with a 9th grade classroom the other day.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was so cool to like see these kids as I'm sharing these different experiences that I've had. I showed them pictures.
We're excited.
And they were like, wow.
That's like, cool. Yeah. Wow.
It's so cool. It's so cool to be able to share those experiences.
Wait, sorry. I remember you had mentioned this when you got to go speak. Are you teaching them how to do podcasting too, or? So
I didn't really know like what to expect. The lady just invited me, and she's like, yeah, I just want you to talk about podcasting and your business, like how to make money. She kind of sent me like a form, like a format that they try to follow, and some questions that the kids will typically ask. And I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I wrote out like a speech of like how I wanted to formulate the speech, whatever. And I put together a little slideshow of pictures and of different experiences I've had doing the podcast and whatnot. And I didn't really know what to expect. I was like, at first I started following my notes, and I'm like, I don't know. And then it just kind of, it flowed. Like I just started talking about the podcast. I was able to kind of teach like about some of the equipment. I brought my setup.
So that's cool.
I brought some microphones and the mixer.
Aww.
And so they
can sit down and try it out.
Yeah, they were able to put the headphones on, talking in the microphones.
So cool.
It was such a cool experience for them.
Yeah.
And then it just like, they started asking me about, like, I told them like how I got into the podcasting game, like why I wanted to do it. And it was to share my personal story.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of led them into like asking me all these personal questions about my personal story. And they seemed more interested in my personal story than they did about the podcast. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
I mean, they were super interested in the podcast too, but like they were like, can you explain your story more? And I'm like, yeah.
Well, were there a lot of kids there that had been through the system maybe, or?
I don't think so. I asked it because it was at Sexton High School. Okay. They were 9th graders. And I asked them, like, do you guys know anybody who's been in foster care, or like, have any of you been in foster care? And people have like raised their hands like, my mom was in foster care. My mom was adopted or, whatever. But yeah, so, people, or they realize, I should not realize, they know people that, went through some of those experiences. But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of cool because it opened up for discussion to like talk about like vulnerable things with them. Like they were like, my mom doesn't have a relationship with my dad or with her dad rather, because he was abusive and whatnot. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience. And then made me realize that like, it's important to share your story.
Yes, it is.
And that's why I started the podcast, and it's easy to lose why you started something.
Yeah.
But then like doing something like that, it makes you realize like this is important. And so it kind of gave me a new fire, and it gave me like a purpose to continue doing what I'm doing, to create like greater education around like podcasting, because there's nothing like that in Lansing. Like I remember when I started this podcast, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know like what I was going to do.
You've come a long way, man.
I know, right? But it's like I need to share that with other people because like that goes back to talking about we talk about like the community and how people, or like they want to be better than other people, but it's like you're not better than other people. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
True.
And if you can help elevate a community and you can help elevate a field that you're in, then you should.
Yeah. And then empower other people. Like you should be driven to not just your success, but the success of everyone else around you. So like even me being a photographer, when I lived in Lansing, I had a few people that shadowed me. And when I said yes, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Their response, they were in awe because they had already talked to maybe 10 other photographers that are like, yeah, I'm not showing you my secrets. And I'm like, that's so sad. I want you to be successful. Yeah. Like we're all trying to make a living and impact the world. Absolutely.
Well, it's like a phantom mentality. Like what is that person? Are those kids going to steal like clients from you? Like what is going to happen?
Yeah, it's sad.
It's either people like you or they don't. And if they don't like you, maybe you should find a way that for people to like you.
Yes.
You just work harder.
And it's crazy because like you get this, you see people that do that. And I think they really think like, oh, I'm Top Gun. But honestly, the people who are most noticed, most liked are those that do just share their wealth of knowledge, that shared their testimony. I always say this with my young adults who are almost like timid at first to share like their story or what they've been through, or say like deconstructing their faith. I'm like, well, the Bible always says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Like there's something with sharing our testimony, our story, that then someone else hears and go, oh my gosh, not only did you have the courage to share it, and like even like you didn't share just the nice parts, you shared the valley, like difficult moments. And it's also, it's encouraging, like, me too. Yes, I'm not the only crazy person out here who's been through this, or I've struggled to make my business up, or whatever that looks like. Yeah. It's just such an encourager. And I think often we get in our heads and we believe the lie that's like, shh, don't tell your story. No one,
nobody cares.
Yeah, or feel that shame or your guilt or whatever that looks like. And really, it's empowering, and it can change people's lives.
Well, I mean, you get hard people who like will say, well, they just want attention, right? Or that they just want to be a victim.
And there is people that do that for sure.
There definitely are.
For sure.
I've had people tell me that before.
Yeah.
Like I had a guy tell me one day at work, he was like, hey man, I hear you have a podcast. I'm like, yeah. And he was like, well, maybe someday I can come on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, man, absolutely. And I know he's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then he was like, maybe I can cry about my stuff too. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's not what people are doing. People are like just telling their stories of like things that they've been through and how they overcame and became better. But
all right. Has he even listened to your podcast?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I just heard about it. The grapevine. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's like, you get people who will, obviously hate on you, and they'll make comments like that, but you just got to keep going.
Dish them what they're serving you. Like, you know what, man? Oh my gosh. Yes, we get vulnerable. We just sob. Kumbaya. Just really make them uncomfortable. That's what I do. I mean, it's not rude. I'm like, they're laugh. I'll give them a hug, whatever. But it's like, what? It shows me for you, if someone wants to hurt people or stab at others, it's because they're inwardly hurting themselves. Yeah. And so it's like, what happened to you? Like, why do you feel like you have to be an emotional bully? Like, I feel sorry for you, honestly. I just turned the tables. It's fun. So it's okay. And then I'm like, can I pray for you? Let me give you a hug. I love you. They're like, what? This girl did me a number. What did she just do?
I had a guy on the podcast last weekend. Actually, I think you know him. He lives in Grand Rapids. His name's Taylor. And
what's his last name?
Vitaly.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do his photos. He's like, he does like powerlifting, or he did a whole weight loss transformation.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
So he was on the podcast last week. He came here. Yeah, he was here.
Okay.
And my brother met him because my brother lives in Grand Rapids, and he came in to buy a car for my brother. And my brother's like, he's telling my brother his story.
Wait, is that the one I met last time? The one that was here helping you?
No.
Oh,
no.
different brother.
Different brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, this brother, he lives in Grand Rapids and he works at a car dealership. And Taylor came in to buy a car from him.
Yeah.
And they met. He was telling my brother was telling him about the podcast. He's like, I think my brother would like to talk to you. And so we scheduled the podcast.
Nice.
And so Taylor was talking about how when he was in a gas station and some lady just started freaking out on him. And he's like, I just stayed calm and was like, I hope you have a good day.
Yeah.
And the lady got even more mad. And it's like, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
You just need to
kill him with kindness. I mean,
care.
A kind word really does turn away wrath because, you don't know what that person's going through, why they're all wound up. And sometimes just be like, hey, I notice you. You're working. You're doing great. It's like, oh my gosh, I needed that.
Right.
They always say, what is it? It's like bullies only tease on people that give them the response they're looking for. So like, if someone's bullying me, like trying to take my jacket, like, oh, here, you can have it. You want my lunch too? Then like, well, you're no fun. I'm not going to bully you.
No, I don't want your lunch.
Yeah, right. Don't give it to me. I want to take it from you. So yeah. And yeah, it's just psychology, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. I think a lot of people are afraid, like, especially when it comes to sharing your story.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid of criticism. And that's one thing I was afraid of when I first started the podcast, because, like I started with my story.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of what other people would say. Like, do they think he's dumb? Do they like...
Wait, podcast number 1, was that you just solo dolo or were you with someone else?
I was with my brother, Michael.
Okay.
He's my full brother. We were sharing our...
Is that the one I met?
No, I think you met Joseph.
Okay.
Was he blonde?
Yes.
Yes, that was Joey.
Okay.
Yeah, he still helps me every now and then.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that was my brother Michael. We shared our stories of growing up before foster care and then what life was like going into foster care.
Wow, okay.
And then the second episode was me sharing my story of like after foster, or like living in foster care, growing up and then getting adopted.
Well, it sets the course for your podcast. I think that was wise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I released that, I was scared. I'm like, I don't know what my coworkers are going to say. Like, people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge fear factor, and a lot of people have that same fear factor.
Wow. Yeah, the fear factor. You just like almost triggered me. So I literally just recently, we have a like a newsletter that we do at the church I work for, and the person that writes it heard that I had been through divorce and I was adopted. He knew I had a story, and so he sits down with me and he's like, if you're comfortable, I really want to like put together an article with your quotes and everything in it. And there's some people that have been through divorce, but for the most part, I was pretty quiet about it the first like 8 months or more. Only very select people knew about it. Partly, I think there was a shame, but the other part of me was I didn't really want to ruin the reputation of my ex-husband. And so I was just very quiet about it. And he sits down with me and he writes it. And part of me, like, he wasn't writing much. So I'm like, oh, it's going to be like a really like basic article. And then it comes out and it gets sent to everyone's emails that go to the church. And there's like 1,600 people in our system.
Oh my gosh.
And I kind of panic because then I'm reading the article and it's like, Shamber, this is what happened. And she fled her ex-husband. And I'm like,
uh-oh.
Okay. And like I work, it's not even just like that's my church. I work for this church, which my boss knows all these things, but there's a part of me that's like, wow, I can't even, like, my story's out. And such fear. But then again, I've had people come up to me and be like, thank you so much for sharing your story. I've had actually, I'm spider webbing here. Before I got remarried to my childhood sweetheart, that's a whole other story. I actually did a post that was going through the red flags of why you shouldn't be with someone. Like, if you feel this way, if this is what's happening or whatever, do not marry that person. And I was really scared to post it because that was literally the day before I was getting remarried. And so I'm like, wow, am I killing the vibe here? But I'm like, I feel really called to do this. And you never know who else needs to hear it. I had 10 girls reach out to me, say like, thank you for having the courage. I would never be able to post these things. 2 of them literally called off their wedding.
Whoa.
Yes. And so I'm like, wow, it's so amazing, like the fear that you can be held in, but really like when you just release it, how many people are like, I've been waiting to get that answer of it's okay, I can let this go, or I can walk away, or I can do this, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do things because of the shame. Like they don't like, especially getting married, right? Like they don't want to, they've scheduled this thing. They've paid a lot of money.
Pressure.
There's a lot of pressure. A lot of people are going to be there, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And they're afraid of what other people might think. And so I just need to go with it. Just need to do it.
It was funny. So like when my first marriage, I was like shaky. I was crying. I kicked all my bridesmaids out, and my mom is like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know if I can do this." I really did not. And I remember thinking like, there's like 500 people sitting out. Like I got to go through with this. And my mom was like, we could just have a big party. And I ended up just going through with it. But there's a part of me that's my wisdom to give to people who are like, I already invited all these people, this and that. I'm like, okay, just have a party. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay, because ultimately you're the only person that's going to lay down on your head on that pillow right next to the other person. You're the only person that has those alone moments. Like you have to make this decision for you, not for your guests you invited, not because your parents, your friends think they're cute. You are the person that's responsible for this. So, and just like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So my question is, did you have, when you got married the first time, obviously you had some of those doubts. Yeah. But when you got married the second time, what was that like?
Oh, zero doubts. Zero reservations. So Ramon, I've known him since I was 6. So we have so much in common. We were both adopted. Wow. We've both been through neglect and sexual abuse, and there was a lot of similarities. His family literally lives like 1,000 feet down the road from my family. So we were neighbors. We did vacations together. Wow. We did church. We did school. We did everything together. And so his sister was actually in my first wedding. So that's how close we were to each other. We like us kids call each other's parents aunts and uncles. And so
you married your cousin?
No, well, we're not really. We just did because we were close.
I'm kidding.
I know, I can't even say that. I'm like, I have to stop saying Aunt Tammy and Uncle Joel because that's just really weird. So yeah, so like even going into that, let me backtrack. Originally, when I moved up to Grand Rapids, I told my mom and I told my boss, I am going to be single for a couple years. I really want to focus on myself and get some healing. And I'm in a really good place. And I got reconnected through, this is a funny story. I got reconnected to Ramon because with moving out to Grand Rapids, I had made like a friendship profile to meet people because I knew no one. So like Bumble, profile. Yeah. So Bumble has this feature where it's dating, friends, or business. So you can find friends on there. I met a few girls. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. It's successful. So I say, I'm going to copy and paste this profile and I'm going to put it on Tinder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Really bad move. So I do this. I'm like, I feel so good about myself. Like, I wait hours because I'm like, whatever. I come back, there's 2,000 plus like swipes and messages or however Tinder works. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
And you get messages from guys that said, I'll be your friend, like quotations. I'm like, this is not working. So then I come back to Lansing and Tinder tracks your like where you're at. And so it was picking up on guys within 15-mile radius and Ramon was in Holt. So I'm in Lansing. I'm showing my brother, dude, look at all these guys. I'm deleting this app and I'm scrolling and there is Ramon. I'm like, oh my gosh, no way, it's Ramon. And I hadn't seen him in a couple years because he had like moved out. He had been dating another person. My brother's like, go out for dinner. So long story short, we went out for dinner just purely as like, that's my old next door neighbor friend. And we used to do everything together. I remember walking in and I was like, oh, he is really handsome. And, but there were some things that I didn't know because like he kind of had a rebellious phase. And so I was like, I don't really know where he's at. Turns out like his whole life was turned around. And yeah, it was like the next day I was like, do you want to hang out again? And then like the weekend after, he's like, I think I can marry you. And I'm like, wow. Oh my gosh. But you can't even hide anything. So he was an exception. I'm like, you're the exception, babe, because I was going to be single for a long time. But like, I had the intimacy with all his family. Like I knew them. So,
right.
Yeah, but I had, going back to your original question, I had zero reservation. Now the first 2 months, total fear. I think I had some PTSD and I made him meet up with my boss, who's the associate pastor. And I just said, look, I'm not being Jewed over again. I really,
are you allowed to say that?
I am a Jew. You realize that's my ethnicity, so I really can
You
say
are
that.
Jewish?
I am. I'm 51%
So
Ashkenazi Jew. Says the 23andMe test. So yes, I can say that, and I can make racial jokes because technically I am black and I am white. So it's really fun. I mess with people all the time.
So. Okay. All right. So you were Jewed over.
I was, yes.
I don't know if I can say that. I don't think I can say that.
It's okay. You can say to me, I'm a Jew. I won't be offended.
Okay.
But maybe on the podcast, you could whisper it. So no, I was really scared that he would make promises or say things to I guess were just lies.
Right.
And so I was scared of that. I was scared of being abused again because I had gone through some physical abuse. And so my boss met with him and he was like, Shamber, we both would have to die before we realized he was lying. Like, he is totally being honest. He's super humble. And basically when he told me, like, I think I could marry you, I said, I am not ready to say that. And so it took me some time. He just said, get your healing that you need. I'm not going to go anywhere. Like, I am willing to be patient and pursue. So then after that whole 2 months, I just had such peace, like laid back sort of peace where it's like, I'm not even questioning, versus my first marriage. We were breaking up every 3 to 6 months.
Oof.
I was breaking up. I had zero peace. It was 5 days before our wedding that I broke down crying. I don't want to do this, but I ended up doing it anyway. So with Ramon, literally, it was like just so much peace. Like, let's do this. We got engaged New Year's Eve and then we got married January 13th. So exactly 2 weeks. We did a micro wedding, and yeah, I'm like, why not? Why not? Let's do this. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I know Sarah Pierce was on. I think it was like in October. Or
Yeah.
Near then, and we were talking about you. I'm like, how's Shamber doing? Because I know you guys are friends, and I'm like, how's Shamber doing? She's like, Shamber's like, she's off doing her own thing, but she's like, I'm so happy for her. She's happy now, and I know that I didn't know your story then. I still don't really know too much that happened, but I know that, like, following you on social media, I could see like some of the incremental changes you were making. Like, all of a sudden you were selling your house, and I'm like, I wonder if her and her husband are together. Yeah. And so clearly you weren't. You were moving to Grand Rapids, and you started doing other stuff, and I'm like, what is going on with Shamber? Yeah. But then, Sarah's like, she's really happy, and I'm really happy for her, and I'm like, that's awesome, because you're an awesome person. Like, you deserve to be happy.
Sarah. Shout out to Sarah Pierce. She honestly got me through a lot of it, because originally I had been training her in her house. I was going, and then it went from training to like, oh, we're just sitting down to have coffee for 3 hours. I'm like, Sarah, I'm supposed to be training you. She's like, not today. And it shifted into, she was very discerning and saw, I was really melancholy, which is not my personality. I was losing weight rapidly. I was really anxious, and she just started being like, yeah, I think something's really off here. And so she starts asking very pivotal questions. I ended up kind of walking through what was going on in my marriage, and she's like, oh, you need to separate. And I did not have the courage to do that initially, and so I still waited. I think it was another month or two until I actually separated. But she literally showed up at the house to meet with my ex-husband, and so I didn't have to be she was there. She made sure you have food, because there was a season I could barely pay my bills and everything just due to the situation that I was left in. And so she was really there for me. And yeah, I just feel really honored to know her. It's just crazy, even how our friendship began. I'm like, man, God is so good. That's just so crazy. But
Sarah is one of the most genuine people.
She's cool.
Ever.
Super cool.
Super cool. I love Sarah. I don't even know her that well, other than doing the podcast with her a couple times, and then whenever I've seen her at events or whatever.
Oh, she'd give you the shirt off her back. She's
great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she does, and she does great things for the community.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I don't know. Let's just wrap this up, man. We've covered everything from Kim Kardashian to just everything.
Being kidnapped or almost abducted.
Yep, being abducted.
I'm glad you weren't abducted. That's a scary thing.
It was scary. It was scary.
Oh my gosh, that is. I couldn't even imagine.
Oh gosh, yeah.
All right, Shamber. Well, thanks for doing this. It was fun to catch up. And next time you're in town, let me know. We'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Awesome. All right, thanks.